Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Brooker, agronomist for Michigan and Northern Indiana, and going to cover quite a few things here, but we've got a lot of different things happening out there with our corn and soybean crops. So I wanted to just give you some updates about what's going on out there and some decisions you may be facing out in the field. So first of all, we're going to start with that corn crop. And with some of the cold and wet weather we had over the last week, hopefully we're going to come out of some of that now, but some of that cold weather caused our corn to look pretty yellow, pretty sickly. But we do expect with some of this warmer temperatures coming that will start to grow out, that whirl, the new leaves and things will come out, start to green that crop back up. So that should turn itself around as long as those growing points. We didn't have any frost or anything like that in most of the areas. So growing points, everything should be fine. So hopefully that crop does turn itself around once we start to get some warmer temperatures. With any of the crop that's in the ground, especially some of that seed that got in before this cold snap and before this rain, there could be issues with stands, depending on how much rain you got and things like that. So just a reminder on those replant thresholds. So Beck's has some data on this, and for corn, somewhere in that mid-20s is where this data has broken out over the last few years. So somewhere in that 25,000 range or 24,000 range is where we're going to be trying to decide where we want to make these replant decisions. Now, keep in mind, the later we get here, now being at the end of May, the later we get here, the less yield potential that replanted crop is going to have. So with corn, remember, we've got to terminate that current crop, get that new crop seeded in. That takes some time usually, depending on your termination method. So keep that in mind. We do have replant calculators available that we can try to give, at least put some rough numbers to making these decisions. So there could be some of that out there, just given some of the weather that we had and some of the seed that was put in the ground there toward that middle part of May. Last thing on corn is just getting a lot of questions about switching maturities. So, are we getting late enough that we need to back down those maturities and things like that? So typically my guidance on this, and this comes from Beck's PFR data as well, the longer maturities typically have a little bit more yield potential as we extend that maturity out further. And so we did do some testing on this, and those long maturities, even when planted later, still had greater yield potential and greater profitability. So part of this was included drying costs. So this is going to change your situation depending on if you have the ability to dry your corn or not. So if you do, there's less risk here with some of this longer day maturities. If you don't have that ability, then there could be a reason that you don't want to plant as long of maturities there as well. But from a yield perspective, definitely we've seen the advantage to sticking with some of those more extended maturities. So I encourage you, especially in this later part of May, even into early June, I don't think we need to be too worried about this yet. Now, another caveat there is if it was a product in 106 day, for instance, and that is really long for your area already. It was already a bit of a stretch. Maybe you do want to back that off now that we're getting to the later part of May. So just some things to consider there. But again, generally speaking, we will benefit from those full season maturities. Now, switching gears here, we're going to talk about some things with soybeans now, starting with our replant threshold on soybeans. So we've looked at this for a few years in our Beck's PFR as well, and that replant threshold comes in somewhere around that 70,000 mark, give or take. Honestly, we can achieve really good yields there. The biggest problem might be weed control. When we have that thin of a stand, 70, 60,000, those stands can struggle to canopy over and get that weed control. So if you've got really good pre's, really good residuals out there, that might be something that you're confident in that weed control program and you don't need to worry about as much. But if you are concerned about that canopy coverage, it doesn't hurt anything if we do want to spot that in. If we are going to spot some additional soybeans in, if you're concerned about a low stand, our data would suggest, we looked at multiple seeding rates here with spotting in. Our data suggests that 100,000 seeds or increasing that number of seeds does give us a slight advantage there with return on investment. Now, keep in mind, we are factoring in that we're not paying for that replant seed. So that's a factor here with these return on investment. Honestly, I think they're pretty even. So anywhere from that 60,000 up to 100,000, depending on how light that stand might already be. That's a decision we'll have to make in the field, but definitely spotting in more seemed to help, at least in our data. Now, with late season populations here, so that's another factor we talk about here as we get into the last part of May and early June. So when we have early planted beans, those beans have a lot of time to grow vegetatively and get more nodes, and that's going to lead to more pods by the end of the season. So we have more time there before we get to flowering. Now that we're getting a little later in the planting season, flowering is going to come quicker, and those beans are going to shift sooner. So we're not going to have as much time to get as many nodes on those plants. So we need to probably have a few more plants out there. So I'm talking for you guys that are planting 130,000 or 140,000 and down at those lower end population ranges, might be the time to start bumping those up. If you're at 130, bump that up another 10,000. As we get into June, it might be closer to 150,000, things like that. If you're already planting 150, 160,000, those populations are probably still going to be fine as we get into the later part of the planting season here. Last thing I'm going to talk about is late season maturity selection for soybeans. We also have some data on this, and it again comes back to the question, early beans early, late beans early, or are we planting early beans late, late beans late? So that question that we get frequently. And this data has clearly shown over the last few years that that full season maturity is going to benefit us. The reason really for that is that bean's going to flower a little bit later. We've got a little more time to grow more nodes on that bean. So I'm not saying go out and put something that's a stretch for your area, but definitely choose something that's full maturity. Don't go with something that's on the shorter end of that maturity range for your area unless you have another reason to be doing so. But this late in the season, let's just choose that nice kind of full season option that's going to give us the best yield potential, given that we're starting to get into some of these little bit later planting dates. So a lot of different topics there, but I think all of those relevant right now coming into this last part of May, early June. Please, like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We're always happy to help. Thanks.